we're missing about 3 people in the back. So watch the Sandy, that row will be gone. So way to pull together, Sandy, you pull the room. I'm going to start by the way, is it Friday? Happy Friday. I'm going to start by returning some great homework and then we'll review. So that should just take a minute or so. And then we'll look at the part writing homework that you had for today. I think it was page 155 in the workbook. Did you have anything to be talking about? Okay, I'll take that. What did you all, any of you in concert choir? What did you all do in choir? Besides sing. Well, what, maybe I should ask, what did you sing?
Maybe work on memorization for a couple of songs.
Memorization?
I was just going to ask, when you write a total class of that class, are you specific for yourself or
Yeah, we do not add signatures until other activities. If you want to double sharp, you have to write the double sharp. If you want to double sharp, you have to write the double sharp. Yep. Okay. So, where was I? Oh, yes. Yeah, let's take a look at page 155 in your workbook. There was a progression there to part right. And I think you did have a little figure bass, I believe. Yep. And this is in the key of A major. And I think I gave you at the end of last class, I'm surprised, I'm proud of myself for remembering, but I gave you guys that ledger line that you were missing in that first tenor note. Right? Okay. But I don't know if any of you were not here, there was a ledger line missing in the first tenor note. It's supposed to be E. So you have to kind of add that in. And I have, let's see, looking at my analysis, I have 2 secondary chords in this progression. One's a secondary leading tone chord and one's a secondary dominant. I am planning to collect this so I can take a look at your part writing. But before I do, does anyone have any questions about something on this assignment? Okay, the first chord in the third measure. Draw a double bar like this so I can still use this grand scale. Racing. So we are in A major. You said the first chord in the third measure? So the figured bass is 6/5 with a natural. And from last semester, you may remember that the full figured bass is 6/5-3. The bass note that we're given in that measure is a C sharp. And I need to place these notes at these intervals above the bass in such a way that where I'm coming from in the part writing, it's going to make sense, and where I'm going to, it's not going to create any part writing errors. So the third above the bass is an E, and based on where I was coming from, I have my E in the tenor, right here. Then the fifth above the bass is a G. Normally, from the key signature, it would be G sharp, but the natural tells us to make it G natural, right? And so I have my G natural in the alto. and I put my A, the sixth above the bass, I put that in this frame. So that's how I voiced mine. I don't know if your question is more like, what is the chord in terms of a Roman numeral, or is it the part rating, or the Roman numeral? Okay, so let's take a look at this. In the key of A major, I guess I'll just shove it way down here. It's not a diatonic chord. It doesn't fit good in the key of A perfectly because of the G natural. But if I look at the notes that it contains from the root A, C sharp, E, G, it's a dominant seventh chord, major, minor, seventh set. So that means it could be a secondary dominant of something, right? Since we're learning those chords. In fact, let me get rid of the figured bass. Let me just put the Roman numeral in here. I was going to write the Roman numeral instead of the key here. So it looks like it's a 5-6-5. That's the inversion it's in. A 5-6-5 of something in the key of A. Well, if A is the chord's root, if I go down a fifth from A, then I'll find out what A is a dominant of. And down a fifth from A gives us D. And what Roman numeral would the root D form in the key of A major? Anyway. 4. Right. So I call that chord a 5-6-5 of 4.
Since I was not here one day and it's not specified, did we have to also write the Roman numerals in there as well?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yes, you are supposed to put the Roman numerals down below the figure base. Yeah. Mine is an old book. Mine says analyze to harmonize. Does yours say something like that?
Yeah.
I think when it says analyze the harmonies, that implies like do a little, analysis, yeah. So, Becca, did that answer your question on this one? And we got time for another question? First measure, third chord. Okay. Well, you guys know how to find the hard ones, huh? So we're still using this key signature. And we have a D sharp in the bass with, I've just got the figure 7 underlined. This means it's going to be a root position 7th chord, but the full set of figures for this is 7, 5, 3. That tells us we need to add 3 notes above this bass note. 1 1/3 above the bass, 1 1/5 above the bass, and 1 1/7 above the bass. At those intervals. Okay, based on where you're coming from in the part writing, I put the 3rd above the bass, the F sharp, I put that in the tenor. A 5th above the bass is going to be an A. I put that one in the alto. And the 7th above the bass is going to be the pitch C sharp, because the key signature makes it C sharp, not just plain C. So I got the notes for my chord in, according to the figured bass. Now I have to analyze this chord in the key of A. Does it look like it's going to be a regular diatonic chord, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7? The answer is no, because it has a chromatic pitch in it. It has a D sharp, and that doesn't fit in the key of A. So that means we're thinking that it's got to be one of our secondary chords, and we only know 2 kinds of secondary chords. We know the secondary dominant, which I just showed you in the previous example, and we know the secondary leading tone. Which one is this going to be based on the type of chord I have here?
So it's going to be a 7 octave
Yeah, it's gonna be a secondary leading tone chord because it's a half diminished seventh chord. D sharp, F sharp, A, C sharp. So it can't be a secondary dominant, it's gonna be one of these. And as a secondary leading tone chord, we're saying that the root, D sharp, is the leading tone to what we're trying to tonicize. D sharp is the leading tone to what pitch? And I know Lexi kind of already said this indirectly, but I'm trying to get at the specifics. D sharp is the leading tone to E, because it's a half step below E. And E is the root of a 5 chord in this key. So I can analyze this chord as a 7 half diminished 7 of 5. And those are the two chromatic chords in here. All the rest of the Roman numerals should be just regular diatonic ones. Can we, I'm gonna go, I'll go to the piano, I'll play it. It might, your part writing might not be exactly like mine, but at least you'll get an idea of what it sounds like. With those two chromatic chords. There's the given chord. Could you, make sure your name is on that page somewhere? I'll call around and pick it up. Today is the last day I'd like to devote to and spend on these secondary chords. According to the assignment sheet, starting next week, we're going to get into, we're going to get into the basic modulation, key changes, and it's going to take us several class periods to get our minds wrapped around that and get a hold on it. It's very closely related to secondary chords, but it's a different topic, so we'll start that next week. So this is the last day I want to confirm and show up and clear up any confusion, if there is any, on the secondary leading tone chords. And we're going to do some spelling, just a little bit of spelling, we're going to do a little bit of part writing, and then we're going to do some analysis together. And for this purpose, what I have done, I don't know why, maybe just because I'm a nice guy, but I printed out some blank staff paper for you all to work on today. So I'm going to each give you a sheet, and I'll tell you exactly what I'd like you to do on the staff paper. What note was that?
What was that used for?
Okay, on your staff paper, can you set up a grand staff like that in A minor in common time? So no key signature, because no flats, no sharps. And I'd like you to write out that given chord that I've given you. We're going to analyze this chord or identify what it is first, and then we're going to part write it to what it's supposed to go to. Based on our discussion last class, we should know how to part write this. But first, we need to find out what it is. Just by looking at it, it has two accidentals, two pitches that are not found in A minor. So I hope you're thinking that this is some sort of secondary chord. It's either a secondary dominant, like a 5 of something, 7 of something, or a secondary leading tone, like a 7/7 of something. Based on the type of chord, can anyone tell me what it is? You think it's a 5 chord? Oh, it's going to go, well, it's not going to go to a 5 chord either. Really close. C sharp, E, G, B flat. Is that a dominant 7 or a diminished 7? It is. It's diminished 7. So that means it's a secondary leading tone chord. Okay. Can anyone tell me what inversion it's in? Good, for 3, and second inversion. And now, does anyone know what it's a secondary leading tone chord of? 4. Yeah. How do you know? Well, because you go to the root, which is C sharp, and you say C sharp is the leading tone to what note, just go up a half step. It's the leading tone to D. And D is the root of the 4 chord in this key. So that's how I know. We're saying that this is a leading tone chord to a D chord. Now this I can understand if you don't know off the top of your head. But the chord we're going to go to is certainly a 4 chord of some kind. I need to know though if I need to go to root position 4 or first inversion. This is a hard one to think about.
First inversion versus these folks are not that
Yes, that's a good way to look at it. We are going to go to a first inversion 4, a 4/6. Yeah, we're certainly not going to go to a 4/6/4. That's never an option. A root position or first inversion. Okay, now what do you think the next step is to do to cover this successfully?
Find the 2 tendency tones.
Okay, good. Can you name one of them? Or
It would be, sorry, what is it?
say again?
Or, there's not B.
The B flat?
Yeah, sorry, B flat.
Yeah,
Yes.
the B flat is definitely a tendency tone. It's the 7th of the chord. That's right, so it goes down a step. Okay. Kind of circle it. And point an arrow that makes sure it goes down. The other tendency tone is?
C sharp.
Okay, and where does that have to go? Up to D. Goes up by half step. What must be in the bass since we've decided we're going to a 4/6? Okay, F. And does anyone know what I'm not supposed to double in a 4/6? A minor 4/6, I should say. This one has a restriction. The major 4/6, you can double anything. That's right, don't double the bass. So I don't want to take my E to an F, but I'd rather take the E to, what's the next one? To a D. And that's how I would write all of that. And I've got analysis of both chords too, also. Again, we're a little ways away yet, but I'm sure the final exam could have a problem similar to this. where you've got to not only analyze the given chord, the chromatic chord, but then you have to part write it, know where it goes to. You have to part write it correctly. Or maybe I'll give you the Roman numeral and you have to put the chord in the staff using this speed. All right, let's do one spelling problem. Let's go down to just the bass clef. Let's say your entire course grade was dependent on finding the root of this chord's grade. Would you be able to go into, would you reach it in your entire course grade? No, I don't think we should do any reading in school. But there's certainly a way we can figure this out. What's the normal process? What's the root of the 5 chord in B? Say again? F sharp? You got it? Now be very careful. What is a minor second below an F sharp? An E sharp. That's right. Yeah. If you think the root of this chord is E, you are sorely mistaken, unfortunately. You get the problem wrong. If you think the root of the chord we're trying to spell is F natural, you would be sorely mistaken. And you get the chord wrong. But it is E sharp. Okay. I'm in the bass clef and it's going to be a root position chord. Does E sharp occur in my key signature? No, there's a lot of sharps there, but E is not one of them. So I'm going to have to put the accidental right on the root. Because that's what I calculated, the root is E sharp. And now to spell a fully diminished 7th chord, as always, if I can just keep calculating minor third above minor third until I get 4 notes. A minor third above E sharp is actually G sharp. And I don't need an accidental on that note because it's already in the key. A minor third above G sharp is B. And a minor third above B is, you tell me, D, right? And what do I need to do to the D? Yes, I need to put a natural on it because otherwise it's G sharp and C. So again, lots of things to be aware of, certain things to calculate, but we're all obviously bright enough, we were able to do this. The mind is capable of doing this. You just need to know what you're doing and be focused, that's all. You can do it without any errors or mistakes. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about spelling or part writing these words? Then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have us work on an analysis. This analysis is it's technically in the book. If you have your book, I'll tell you what page it's on. If you don't, I'll see if I can put it up there on the screen. I think I'm just going to find it. That's not a real page anymore. Okay, it's page 291. Anyone know if it's TV show or something? I'm gonna try turning it off and turning it on again, see if that gives me any success. That's fun, I turn it on, there's whiskey. That's a good thing. Hey, no business. So this is the progression that's written at the top of the page I said that was page 291. This is just a short four-voice example by Bach. And I can go to the piano, I can play this for us, and then I think I want us to analyze all the chords in here, including any chromatic chords, and see what we found. This passage is in A minor. It ends with a 5-chord or a half cadence. If you have your book, you can certainly write the answers in there. I'm going to try something really unorthodox here. And I'm so proud of myself. Okay, so A minor. Some of the things that we need to know. First of all, any chord we come across in a passage of music that we're analyzing that contains one or more chromatic pitches is for now going to be a secondary chord, either a secondary dominant or a secondary leading tone chord. The reason is because those are the only two chromatic chords we know so far. When you find a chromatic chord in a passage, and how are you going to make sure, how do you know when you find a chromatic chord in a passage? What gives it away?
Accidental.
Okay, accidental, that's right. When you find a chromatic chord in a passage, which is going to be evident from the accidental or accidentals that do not belong to the key, once you find that, then we need to determine whether or not the chord is a 5 of something or a 7 of something. A secondary dominant or a secondary leading tone chord. The chord is going to be one or the other. Now, let's talk a little bit about A minor for a second. If I include all three forms of the minor scale of A minor, is F natural? And this is scale degree 6. Is that a chromatic pitch to A minor? And the answer is no. Because you find it in the, not only the harmonic, but also the natural minor. Is F sharp completely foreign or technically chromatic to A minor? No, because we can find it in the ascending melodic minor, right? That's the raised 6th scale degree, or that's lay, and this is low. Okay, what about scale degree 7? Is G natural? Is that a chromatic pitch to A minor? No, because we can find it in the natural minor and the descending melodic minor. And finally, G sharp, is that chromatic to A minor? No, because that's the raised leading tone. That's T, and that's found in the harmonic minor. So any of these pitches, whether we see accidentals on them or not, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, they're not technically chromatic pitches to A minor. And those notes in and of themselves or by themselves are not going to cause a chord to be chromatic. Okay? Now take a look at the music there. Do you see in the alto, kind of midway through the passage, do you see there's a G sharp and a G natural? Well, just because those notes have accidentals doesn't mean, ooh, look, those are chromatic chords. They have to be secondary chords. No, they don't. So we just found out that in minor keys, when you raise scale degree 6 and raise scale degree 7, you're going to get accidentals doing that. Do you see the second chord from the end? Do you see there's an F sharp in that chord in the alto voice? Does that F sharp by itself make the chord chromatic? No. But what else does that chord have? It has a D sharp. And that has nothing to do with A minor. That has no place in A minor. D sharp is a real, true chromatic pitch. So when we get to that chord, we're going to know that that's a secondary chord of some kind. Take a look. What's the other chord that's going to be a secondary chord? Yeah, the C sharp, E, G, B flat chord, right? Not because it has the G natural, but because it contains a B flat and the C sharp, which have no place in A minor. Okay, so that's going to be a secondary chord as well. It looks like the other chords that we analyzed, they're just going to fit naturally or diatonically in the key of A. So can you see how going into an analysis, even when you have chromatic chords, it doesn't have to be like intimidating, or it doesn't have to be something like, I have no idea where to start. No, you can kind of go in with an educated guess, some education going in, and you can know, hey, I kind of anticipate where my chromatic chords are going to be. You have a question?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember from last semester. I know we talked about something with the third scale degree, but I don't remember what that is and if it applies or not.
The third scale degree?
In a minor scale?
Well, all I can think of is maybe initially we were comparing minor scales to major scales, and you had to lower this third scale degree.
Okay, yeah.
But if that was all that is, that will come into play. I don't know if that's what you're asking. All right, so can we start analyzing? And by the way, we also need to determine whether or not these pitches, whether they're chromatic or not, are they chord tones or are they non-chord tones? We have that to decide about too. So if I were to analyze the chord in the pickup measure, which notes are part of the chord and which notes are not part of the chord? Can you explain that?
So, the first chord is A, C, and E,
That's right.
and that belongs, and that's a one chord.
Okay.
And then,
Let me see if I can get that written down first here. And sorry, it's going to be bad, but I don't have anything to rest my hand on, so I'm just going to have to scribble it in there.
and then the B and D are non.
Okay, they're non-chord tones, so I'll put parentheses around them. Can anyone tell me what kind of non-chord tones they are?
They're both passive.
Yeah, because they're approached and left by steps in the same direction. You see that? The bass one goes A, B, C. Is this kindergarten? Okay. The next one goes C, D, E. Yes, it's not that far, right? But you're right, they're passing tones.
Whenever I try to say the alphabet now, I keep going back to A versus D.
Whenever you want.
I'm trying to like think of the alphabet.
Oh, the alphabet,
G,
sure.
G, H.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so again, sorry for the poor handwriting, but that's PT there, not patrol boat or anything like that. It's a passing tone. Well, good, we take care of the pickup measure. Well, we got some more chords to deal with. The first beat of the next measure, the first full measure. What are you thinking? Can you look at that and maybe decide which tones are part of the chord and which ones are not, and maybe what the Roman numeral would be?
Is it one first version?
It is. It's a one chord in first inversion, so that's a 1-6, right? Because we got A, C, and E. Oh, that's nasty looking. And then what were you going to say?
The B is a non-chord.
Okay, the B is not part of the chord. That's right, it's another passing tone. So far, so good. On beat 2, we have a couple A's. The tenor and the bass are sharing an A. The soprano has a C. Am I missing another note? Or is it really there?
Yeah, it's on
Yeah, well, I have an E. Where is the E in that on beat 2? It's actually holding right from beat 1. Right? You see it's a dotted quarter. So I do have all the notes I need. In fact, that eighth note in the alto on the end of beat 2, that's just another chord tone A. So any way you slice it or dice it, it's A's and C's and E's. Yeah, there's the one chord. We're getting closer to the good stuff. But, beat 3. There's one note in beat 3 that does not fit in the chord. Okay, A. You're right, that does not fit in the chord, and I'm going to try to put parentheses around that. It is. I don't know why it's. Let's see if it'll let me erase. Okay. Now let's be careful. It is a suspension because it's approached by the same note and left by a step down. But what interval does A produce above the bass E? A fourth, and the G sharp above the E produces a third. So 4/3 suspension. Let's squeeze it in here. 4/3 sus. And so what is the chord that I have left on beat 3? Yeah, it's a 5 chord, E, G sharp, B. Now we're coming up to the big chords. C sharp, E, G, B flat. I know you can't say it doesn't compute. I don't know what to do. What are you thinking?
No, I'm giving up.
You're giving up? Well, okay, so we figured out that the B flat and C sharp are really chromatic pitches. They don't belong in A. So it's got to be either a secondary dominant or a secondary leading tone. How do we tell the difference? Yes, it's all dependent upon the type of seventh chord. Is that seventh chord on B4 a major minor seventh, or is it a diminished seventh of some type? It's diminished, yeah. C sharp, E, G, B flat. That's actually all minor thirds. So that means it's not a 5 of something, but it's rather a 7 of something. And it looks like it's in root position too. Oh boy, look at this terrible hand. 7 diminished, 7 up. And the chances are that the chord, it's a secondary chord, well, it's going to be the very next chord, but what were you going to say? Yeah.
4 for the next one.
You're right, it's a 7 diminished 7 on a 4. C sharp is the root, that's the leading tone to D. D is the root of a 4 chord in this key. And 4 chords in minor keys are minor. Ooh. Let's try this again. Did I make a mistake?
No, I think I just missed it.
Okay, 7 diminished 7 on a minor 4. Going on, what do you think the next chord's going to be? Probably root position 4. Yeah, it's a minor 4. And now we come to another juicy chord. F sharp doesn't make it chromatic, but the D sharp does. What type of secondary chord is this? Is it a major minor 7th chord, or is it a diminished 7th chord again? What do we think? Yeah, I think it is too. D sharp, F sharp, A, C, that's all minor thirds again. Okay, so it's going to be a 7 diminished 7, because it's root position, of 5, yeah. D sharp is the leading tone to E, which is in the key of A. So it's a 7 diminished 7 of 5. And does it go to a 5? Sure. and we end with a half cadence. So, I guess like in your future assignment, future homework, you can go into your analysis armed with a lot of important information. You've got a lot of knowledge knowing what to look for, what you might expect, and then just see what the notes tell you. Okay? If you find indeed a chromatic pitch that makes a chord chromatic, it's going to be a secondary chord for now. It's either a 5 of something or a 7 of something, depending on the type of chord that you find in the music. If it's just got a few accidentals that make scale degree 6 and 7 fluctuate, that's not really enough to make it itself a chromatic chord. In fact, we could probably state, so far, what are the reasons we know? Why are there accidentals in music? Okay, yeah. To raise or lower scale degrees 6 and 7 in minor keys. That's sometimes we have to have accidentals in music. And what's the other reason for accidentals now we're seeing in music? Say again? Well, okay, we're not quite there yet, but
To make like the,
yeah, to make secondary chords, right? Say all secondary chords. So far, these are the two main reasons we find accidentals in music, and this we learned last semester, and this is now something we're going to use. There are many other reasons which we'll learn in later semesters, but for now, this is where we'll probably run. Now, I totally lost my train of thought as to what your assignment is. Oh, yeah. Yes. Your assignment for next class is a music study. And I've got a handout for you. And still, we have 5 minutes still, so once I give you this handout, don't rush off. I want to see if I can play the passage that you're supposed to analyze off of YouTube so that you can hear it. So, this is going to deal with the opening to Beethoven's First Symphony. And if you've never heard it, well, you've probably heard it. In fact, I don't know, maybe I played it in a previous class or something. You can see there's a piano reduction of the first 12 measures of Beethoven's First Symphony. It starts down here, it goes on back. And you can see that there are some chromatic pitches in there. This is supposed to be in the key of C major.
what did the original say? Nothing?
Oh, where it says, listen to the recording of this piece on, it used to say Maxos. Have you ever heard of that? No, it used to be this thing that you could subscribe to through the library website, and it had all these CDs of all these classical things, and you just have to find the artist and the piece and stuff.
Or about like before you
Yeah. Yeah. You've never heard of Maxos? Wow, that
Does it
makes me
still
feel really
exist?
old. It might. I don't know, you could just Google it, NAXOS. That's what it was called. I don't know, hopefully, maybe we'll bring something up. But boy, that makes me feel old. Okay, while she's doing that, let's listen to the first 12 measures. You think Beethoven would be so bold and so audacious as to start his very first symphony with not even a diatonic chord, with a chromatic chord? Oh yeah, heck yeah. So I'd like to find out what you think this first chord is going to be. It's a chromatic chord that we've learned, and that's the first chord he ever wrote in any symphony. And it's not even, it doesn't even fit in the key. Okay. So that's, I think that's where we're going to have to stop. So all you got to do is complete the front and the back to the best of your ability, and we'll see you on Monday.
It's still exciting.
Did you find it?
Yeah.
Any XOS? It had like a whole database of like classical pieces. Yeah. Because they had so many classical recordings or something like that. That's where you, before YouTube, that's where you find recordings.
I wonder if all this, like, still have a subscription to it.
I don't know.
But
If they did, it's probably costing them money.
I believe you, it's just sometimes those sites just don't exist anymore, like, what was it, MySpace? That-
Oh, yeah.
Months of fun. I thought it was a Napster. I thought it was being used.
Oh, no, Napster, that was like at least 20 years ago too now, isn't it?
How are you?
There's a bunch of piracy, that's all.
I remember that too.
My brother uses this thing called 123. I think it's finally shut down, but 123 movies where you go to down.
Nope, it's still there.
I thought they took it down.
Nope,
I
it's still
thought they
there.
got in trouble for it.
It's a thing.
Wasn't it for a while though, and then it opened up? I'm pretty sure they got,
You don't.
I'm pretty sure they got in trouble.
That's how I watched Godzilla vs. Kong.